Collaboration is key in many situations, especially for teams in competition shows. BFDI in particular has had some really fun teams that have facilitated great storylines, but that doesn't mean any combination of characters can make a good one. When done poorly, a team can end up suppressing characters who have the potential to shine, whether it be through having stale dynamics or a weak impact on the show, and to me in TPOT, Teammates is a prime example of both problems. And I say to me because there are some varied opinions on the weakest TPOT team, but I have clear reasons as to why, along with potential changes that I think could have made Teammates a stronger team without making them completely different. I'll be going over what makes them fall so flat before peering through their 10-episode run and putting a spotlight on how they could be improved, because this is a look at what I'd call the worst TPOT team. Our clear starting spot is when the team forms in TPOT 1, which is pretty easy to talk about because it's made up of only duos and trios from BFB. Our first is Donut and Barf Bag, originating from Team Ice Cube as the most sensible members within its chaos. They got along well in pre-split, so naturally they stuck together here and get spotted by Coiny, who realizes that this is the prime time to bring back the OG BFDIA Woe Bunch, and he takes Pin and Needle with him. All three of them come from the losers, and are also pretty level-headed, at least in this season, while also getting along. The final two joiners of Gady and Saw, from 8 names, are also pretty reasonable and friends, and hey, I think I see a trend here, being how everyone on Teammates are very normal characters. Like, a team doesn't need to have a perfect balance between chaos and control, nor does it need to be all goofy, but because everyone on Teammates are all decently friendly, what the team does each episode and how those friend dynamics are explored become way more important. Like, the team just formed, and regardless of how all these characters were liked at the time, their current team vibes are as good as raw pasta that you gotta boil and sauce up if you want to make a dish, or rather team, worth enjoying. And the biggest problem Teammates ends up facing is how the extra focus they needed to become a strong team of friends wasn't put in at all. Now that isn't noticeable in this first episode, since every team just formed, but the cracks in the team's foundation can already be seen in Teapot 2. Sure, the team does have things going on, such as Pin's conflict with Coiny about cheating with glue, and Gady chatting with 2. However, both plot points don't include the whole team. Donut, Barfbag, Needle, and Saw spend the whole episode doing the challenge without having any big chance to interact with each other or other teams in the same way crews like Death Pact Again and Are You OK are able to branch out, well, including almost everyone. Teammates, though, they hardly get anything here that brings them closer together. Nothing makes them better teammates, and that's without getting into other issues, like how Pin and Coiny's friction feels very clunky by making Pin the only stubborn person on the team who cares about the glue, because we got a way more pressing concern that looms after this episode. The problem is simple, yet deadly, as Teammates gets trapped in a pattern of receiving little to no attention and still not feeling like a close team because of it. Now, given that there are 6 squads and 1 teardrop, not every episode is going to highlight all of them, but Teammates are especially left in the dark with how they're barraged by a string of boring outings. We have Teapot 3, which only has a tiny mention of Pin's worries from last episode, before they just do the challenge and lose. Teapot 4, where the team is sad after Saw gets eliminated, before they get a scene in the flower challenge. And Teapot 6, where, hey, I like the clever idea and the traps that they use in the cooking challenge, but we only get 2 main scenes in a montage to see that method in action. These episodes are super close to each other, and because they're early in the season 2, Teammates, again, doesn't create a sense of unity between its members. they're still divided by the groups they entered the team with, forming no new meaningful bonds inside the team, and only one major link outside the team with Gadian 2 that, as I said earlier, isn't very connected to teammates itself. It's a dryness that's recognizable in the episodes, not just from what they do, but also from how many votes they receive in both their eliminations. Remember, the voting system in this stage of the game was that you could only save one contestant even though 2 teams were up for elimination, so there's often a difference in how many votes are cast for each team. We can see this difference with teammates, because despite facing 2 major voting wars, they got less votes than both the S and Are You OK, which shows a subtle but lower interest in their members compared to their competition due to how lacking these early episodes were. That lack of having initial impact, or a failure to have a solid foundation for everyone on it, leads to episodes like TPOT 5, 7, and 8 still not being too great for them, despite having more teammates focus. Like, it isn't hard to see the problem. They weren't given the time they needed to become an interesting group, which makes all their internal dynamics underbaked, their individual characters less interesting than they could be, and now, in the year 2026, I'd straight up call nearly everyone on the team inferior compared to what they've done outside of teammates. Pin, Coiny, and Needle have arcs or growth in BFDI that demolishes what teammates gave them. Donut has become a major player in TPOT on Cloudy A. Barfbag had some good moments on Team Ice Cube, and Saw at least had half a season on 8 Names, where she wasn't used exclusively as a running gag. Really, Gady is the only exception to me, through being alright on all of her teams, but 1 out of 7 characters not being inferior is an awful percentage that shows how restrictive Teammates was. In fact, there's only a brief couple of episodes where I think Teammates isn't too restrictive, and because I'll talk about TPOT 5, 7, and 8 later anyways, I'm just gonna jump right to that interesting pair. Starting with TPOT 9, we open with their second elimination, where in a crazy close vote, Coiny bites the bullet. This is a major blow to their foundation, since when teammates did get focus, Coiny was basically their leader, and him being axed in the middle of Telltale's The Walking Dead causes everyone to take more initiative. I mean, Barfbag is a zombie almost the whole time, and Donut dies about midway through, but Gady, Needle, and Pin are all pretty good here thanks to this challenge doing a nice job at showing Needle's determination while giving time for Gady and Pin to have some reflection in a scene together near the end. It's a shakeup that leads to another comparatively okay outing for teammates in TPOT 10. They still don't get a ton of attention, but I think them trying to wake up Barfbag from her nightmare is fun with how they collide with Robot Flower, and it leads to an alright conclusion with how, despite her worries, everyone still cares about Barfbag, and they don't hold any ill will about the undead stuff. Now it does feel rushed, being contained to 1 episode, but it's better than nothing, and is understandably quick, because this is the last episode Teammates is together, before they get swapped around in TPOT 12. So yeah, that's the end of the road for them, and while I may have ended my teardown of the team on a nicer note, that doesn't change how, for a majority of their time together, Teammates is a snooze fest that doesn't get nearly enough focus to be worth a damn, leading to everyone except for Donut being taken out like fish in a barrel due to Teammates preparing nobody for the team swap. That being said though, just because the team was executed poorly, that doesn't mean they were doomed to be bad. Yet simply saying they need more screen time wouldn't solve any of their problems. We need some actionable steps here, and while I'm no show writer, I do think that with some small changes and ideas, Teammates can be shaped into an at least better team, without shifting who's on it, the boot order, or what they generally do in the challenges. So now, let's zip by every episode again, or for the first time, to see how Teammates can be remastered. Alright, since TPOT 1 is just the introduction and formation of the team, I really don't think anything needs to be tweaked because TPOT 2 should be the episode where this and every team starts to truly take shape, so let's start with the Pin and Coiny conflict. Currently, this conflict feels so weak because Pin is alone in her stubbornness against using glue, so there's gotta be more characters involved in the divide. Say Coiny, Needle, and Barf Bag are totally fine using glue, while Pin, Saw, and Donut are unsure about the method. It would be a feud still amplified by how Coiny views BFDIA as a good time, while Pin wants to move past it, and by having more of the team leave to talk to two with Pin, you get an easy chance for another conversation between them, maybe one that alludes more to Pin's negativity about BFDIA, that would create new or expanded connections between Pin, Donut, and Saw that would better sell how the members of teammates are becoming closer. From there, in TPOT 3, you could split up the team again by grouping characters like Saw, Needle, Coiny, and Donut in building the restaurant, while Gatey, Pin, and Barf Bag can try to find food inside the hotel. This, again, gives room for more new connections between the members of teammates to form by splitting up the original duos and trios. Plus, splitting the team into groups gives the new inside group a big chance for more screen time. Pin could confide in Gatey and Barf Bag about how she doesn't want teammates to go down a dark path with their strategies. They could then explain to Pin how she should recognize that what they've done so far has never been too extreme, while still giving Pin reassurance that they do see her concerns with stuff like the glue debacle, and that they don't want to ever become too callous about winning, which would go well beyond the tiny way Pin's concerns were addressed originally. Hell, placing the team inside the hotel gives them a chance to mix with Just Not, since they're also looking for stuff inside before they regroup with the restaurant builders prior to the sun setting. Now from here it could just be the same, but IMO, I think the team finding food and whipping up a banger meal that would totally give them the win would make their loss with the restaurant being erased by Eraser a more surprising outcome. What also may be surprising is that, despite how TPOT 4 is one of the really bland ones for teammates, I really don't think it needs much fixing. Like, in the episode, their plant is totally chill with no issues, so really the only scene that could use some more meat is the one where the team is sad that Saw got eliminated. But thanks to connecting her to Pin and Donut in TPOT 2, their sadness would naturally feel more, well, natural. Natural like the plant. And because that plant is completely fine, I think it's okay for there to be an episode where teammates takes a back seat. Wait, trains have back seats too, and that flawless transition brings us to TPOT 5. Which is a unique case because, while I kinda blew past it earlier, I think this episode is almost good for teammates as is. I like how they think outside the box and need to pick up a magnet from Yellowface's warehouse instead of hanging by the canal, but because no other team goes that direction, their actual scenes are just whatever, since the team hardly feels connected, and there aren't any major stakes other than the progress of teams who are thousands of miles away. That's why I think the best change would be to simply have members from another team clash with them along the way, and of all the options, I'd say the S has the best candidates. While Winner, Ice Cube, and Bottle are by the canal trying to freeze it, Yellowface, Clock, and Rocky could be after that same magnet as another solution, so teammates have got to fight to claim it. That would make their journey to get the magnet more exciting, and that same logic of letting them interact with other teams more could also apply to another smaller episode for them in TPOT 6. The change I'd make here is simple, since I already like the trap idea, so I think you just gotta take it to the extreme and have the traps set by teammates become way more obstructive. Like, all we get in the episode is Bottle falling into a pit they dug, so how about the traps that teammates set affect more teams in minor or major ways, and we get an extra scene with the whole team realizing that they went way overboard before they clutch a win in the same way. It would be a neat change of pace to see the more reeled-in crew cause a lot of chaos, and by indirectly affecting a bunch of teams, they can become more impactful. Okay, no clean transition this time, because TPOT 7 and 8 are both strange cases that need a bit more thought to figure out. TPOT 7 is a lot like TPOT 5 in how teammates does get screen time, but only Coiny, Pin, and Donut are really focused on, while TPOT 8 just has some weird individual writing choices, like the one I talked about in my snowball analysis, that end up reflecting poorly on the team. Remember, we're trying to keep it simple, so I think the improvement that makes the most sense would be to start giving Barfbag some extra attention now, instead of backloading her fear to TPOT 10. TPOT 7 could still play out mostly the same, maybe make Coiny and Pin screw up with the mirror, a bigger issue with everyone else, but how about after they kill Donut to win the challenge, Barfbag starts to feel guilty about suggesting that they should use Donut to win. I mean, Donut and BFB was actively against using someone like Spongy as a disposable tool, so her having some guilt about brutalizing her friend would make sense and could materialize with her expressing some doubt shortly after they win. This could then carry into TPOT 8, where instead of Donut being mad at his team for using him to win for like 2 seconds before it gets dropped, he can stay a little miffed, and once him and Pin are stranded on the other side of the balance beam, she could try a little harder to understand his frustrations, while on the other side of the beam, Coiny and Needle really don't see the issue, or don't have time to talk mid-challenge, which doesn't make Barfbag feel better. From there, TPOT 9 can be about the same, but because Barfbag has had some doubts before starting the zombie outbreak, her worry that everyone will be mad or scared of her, and the resolution of that worry in TPOT 10 would feel more properly paced and serve as a solidification of how teammates are friends, even with some ups and downs. And just like that, we've made it to the end again. And I just want to make it clear that the point of me trying to quote-unquote remaster teammates wasn't to make them into a goated, supreme, triple S, mega, ultimate, legendary god squad. Rather, I wanted to show how teammates wasn't flawed at its core. They don't need a full rewrite to become functional, even if one would be interesting to see, and they did have a better path forward that wasn't taken. It makes them a frustrating team to look back on with how underused teammates ended up being, but they do at least serve as a cautionary tale for the importance of how critical a team's focus and dynamics truly are. And that may seem really obvious, but no matter how good the characters may be on their own, a mishandled team can severely hamper anyone. And with so many other teams that have been anywhere from fine but forgettable to iconic, the barbed and boring execution of teammates is what makes them stand as my pick as TPOT's worst team. That's all I gotta say. If you have any ideas for how teammates could be better, then be sure to comment them down below. If you haven't though, please subscribe, like, hype, share, hit that bell, comment if you have any other thoughts, and thank you for watching.